All right. We're going to let people log in here. So we're just going to give everybody just a minute to get logged in. All right. Looks like we got a good group here, you guys. No pressure or anything. All right. Before I get started and do any introductions, I just want to let you know we will take questions during the program. So if you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat function or in the Q&A section down at the bottom of your screen. You'll you'll click on the two speech bubbles down there and go ahead and type in your answer. When we kind of get towards the end of our discussion, I'll go ahead and ask your questions live to the group. And if they fit in with something that we're talking about, I'll try to slip those in during our conversation as well. So with that, it looks like we got most everybody signed in who's going to be here right on time today. Thank you for your timeliness. Welcome to our webinar Wednesday on Thursday this week, our Builder of Choice series. We're so excited for this topic. I know it's a big topic on everybody's mind, but we're going to be talking about building an efficient home that your buyers will love. We're going to be focusing on the Builder of Choice concept, which is when you are the builder of choice in your marketplace. And that means that you're the builder that everybody wants to work with, including your employees, your trade partners, and even your home buyers. And so these discussions that we have today and future discussions are led to help you become a builder of choice in your market. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We have a great group today. Most of you probably already know Ed Hauck. So I'm going to start with Ed, move over to Steve, and then over to Peter from EQ Homes. So Ed, will you do a quick introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yep. Thanks, Emma Jane. Not like I haven't seen you in a while. We've been on the road a lot recently. I've been with Chuck and Emma for a little bit over 10 years, I think. And when I first started with Chuck and was working with our product design team, what I realized is everybody kind of does product design blindfolded, and they just fly through the dark, designing, adding, and whatnot. And then at the end, they can't figure out why there's no profit. So what Chuck taught us is really put profit first and have a process and procedure about product design. A few years back, I met Steve Moore, and we kind of hit it off because we both had the same concept. You know, you have to have a lot of information actually to do product design. A lot of builders just start designing how they feel and whatever, and that's really not the best way to go. So I won't spend much more time because everybody on the call I know and or have met or have been in classes. So that's about it, Emma Jane.
Thanks, Ed. And Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. You had your last official day, and so you're taking time out of your retirement schedule. I know you're so busy right now.
Yeah, I know.
To share your wisdom with us. So we're excited that you decided to join us today. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I have my name's Stephen Moore. I was the director of marketing for BSB Design, Jack Bloodgood's firm that started in 1966. I've been there since 91. I've known Chuck and Emma and worked with them. The pleasure of working with your organization since 1980. So, and what Ed talks about with us integrating and understanding design and the way that works with the building company has been something of a passion of mine for a long, long time. And some of you, I'm sure I've met before at some of the seminars that I've helped talk about this topic. And typically it's a 3-hour-long conversation. So this is really kind of an urgent scenario. And there is a way out. I mean, that's the key. So regardless of how we are in the situation we're in, given and the conditions we're in, there is a way out of it. And we're going to talk about that today.
Thanks, Steve. And then finally, Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. We asked you to come join us because you spent some time with us at the Executive Summit this year. And you got some inspiration to do some new things with your organization. And I thought it'd be fun to have you share some of what you learned and how you applied that in your organization. Can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'll apologize to everybody. I have a bit of a head cold, so there might be some coughing and sneezing happening. So I'm Peter Jury. I'm the VP of Construction at EQ Homes in Ottawa, Canada. So I've been at EQ for 11 years. 11 years ago, we were building 50 to 70 houses, and now we're 250 to 350 annual sales and closings a year. So through those scaling the business over those 11 years, specific to design, we've had some wins and we've had some losses, certainly. So looking forward to discussing some of my experiences today and things that hopefully have gone well that I can share with everybody.
Thank you so much. Well, let's kick off with a quick question. And I know everybody's in here to learn about how to build an efficient home. But I want to start off because you're all coming from different perspectives. I'd like to start off with having you guys define what building an efficient home means to you. So I'll start with Ed, and then we'll go around the circle again from Ed to Steve, and then finish off with Peter.
So I'm going to start out with what I learned from Chuck a long time ago is really start off with what the target market, what are you aiming at? What's the sale price? And a lot of builders kind of start off with that. And we were with a builder just recently and kind of thought that was not attainable. And the market we're in right now, it's really, really important to try and hit that sale price to hit your buyer's needs. From there, Chuck taught me to work backwards, put profit at the top, and then just use your metrics to work backwards to figure out how much you have in direct construction costs. And that'll tell you how many square feet you're going to have. And the one thing that I first met Stephen Moore is we both were on the same page is I've got to share all this with my design team and my architect. A lot of times we don't share with the architect. And Steve told me a long time ago in his famous lines, he's, I don't know what we want, but I'll know it when we see it. So I like to give the architect as much as I can. I need to have a super efficient building envelope. And that doesn't mean I want to build ugly barrack style houses. That means I want to build the appropriate house for that product line. I got to put enough money into the elevation to be very appealing. I got to pay attention to some of the spaces in the house that really drive the sales. When Lita and I did this session, I don't know, 2 months ago, whatever it was, if I do a really bad job of over engineering, over designing, and not really considering Steve's favorite line, performance engineering, what's going to happen is I'm going to have no money left to leave for my sales and marketing team to have something to brag about. Sales and marketing, by the way, don't want to brag about oversized parallels or oversized beams and headers. They need real things to brag to buyers about to sell the home. The best kitchen, the best bathrooms, or might be the best public spaces, and things like that. So I try to watch how I'm constructing the envelope to be as cost effective as possible, and still be very competitive in the marketplace. So not be wasteful in that process.
Thanks, Ed. Stephen.
You're right, Grasshopper. You've learned lots from me. I'm very proud of you. Excuse me. The key for me about efficiency is, especially nowadays, well, it's pretty much every time we've done this over the last 20 years, is your mission and your goal is to take the efficiencies out of the parts of the building that your customers don't care about. And then take that dollar amount that you save and invest it in the areas in which they do. If you do nothing but that, you will have a step ahead of all of your competition because you'll have more money to play with. Now, as Ed mentioned, the key to that is you have to understand what your consumer is looking for and what they want. You have to understand what the competition is doing so you can compare apples to apples and see what makes sense. But the idea that there are strategies for reducing the number of corners in the building and the structure of the roof and things like the window count. I mean, this is like I said, this is a 2-hour seminar that Ed and I do where we talk about all the individual items. But the key is that to make it efficient, it's to think about all the things the customer doesn't see or care about, that doesn't affect the structure of the house, that you're still building a quality building, and you still have to make sure that it's appealing, because if you got to remember, your consumer has to fall in love with the house. I mean, that's the key. So whatever you're doing is with that goal is aligning the numbers that you need. The conversations that Chuck and I had over the years is, You tell me what the sales price is, and then I'll back into what the building can do or what size the building needs to be. So you start with the price of the house, sales price of the house, and then work backwards. And so you got to know your numbers, like Ed talks about. We have to know how to put it together. But the idea of making it efficient and getting rid of the things in the back of your mind that says the customer has to have this, you have to make sure you test that always with making sure you're getting rid of the things they don't care about and investing in the things they do. That's the initial stage. And if you do nothing else other than that, you're in line.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Peter, what is your definition of a efficient home?
Yeah, so maybe my definition may have changed a bit over the past 3 years, because I think I share the same frustration as a lot of other builders with cycle time right now. So efficiency to me is certainly some of our new designs now we design them with in coordination with our trades to ensure that they're constructible and that we're asking the right questions along the way, so that we are addressing the issues that we're having, as well as all other builders, to be honest with you, in our market anyways, with cycle time. So and we have done some things in the past that we didn't have any idea were going to be a challenge for our trades. And the problem was we just weren't asking. So I think it's really important that you have your design team, and that can be internal, but there's also an external design team that plays a critical part in that as well, because we're knowledgeable, but we're not professionals as far as each scope along the way. So I think my comment on this would be to ensure that you really build an internal and external team when you're looking at efficiency in designs.
That's
Can I
great.
add something, Emma Jane?
Yes, please.
Peter hit on something that I'd forgot to mention too. There are two parts of this. One is the product itself, and the other is the process. And the design team that you have can help that design process and the length of that talks about what Peter's talking about, and we can really mess it up. And it's really important to think about it as a teammate scenario, because the design process itself can take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year. And imagine the cost of your business sitting there without having something to put in the ground for that period of time. And so we're going to talk about other stuff like that, but just keep that in mind as well. It's not just the product itself, it's the process that which you follow to bring it to market, which is really important.
Well, that leads us right into my next question. I'll pay you later for that,
Sorry.
Steve. But the next question is, when building an efficient home, it's important to take the product development process seriously. What are some things builders need to focus on when going through this process? Because like you said, a lot of times people just think about the structure, or they think about the materials, and they become very myopic in their view on building an efficient home. And there's a whole process to it that starts with from the day you get the idea of what kind of a house you want to build to the day you sell it to your customer.
So for me, Ed mentioned it first thing. I keep talking about Ed. This is terrible. One of the things that we do is, as architects, we should do as an industry, and this is on you, the builder, is that we can do anything you want, but we need if you're a bowling alley, we need the gutters on either side of us to keep us channeled in the way we're supposed to go. Because given any kind of imagination, will go anywhere we want, which is detrimental to you and your process. We need to know how many square feet, how many bedrooms, what the price point is, the consumer market you're looking for, what your limitations are from a construction standpoint, as a company, what systems can you use and what can you not use? We have checklists that are 3 pages long, 8 pages long, and 15 pages long that we would ask the builder to fill out to tell us what kind of limitations they have, companies and windows they use, so we know the dimensions. All of that information is what goes into a set of floor plans. So the less guessing that you have as a design team in the beginning improves the speed at which the design team can deliver to you the final product. And the fact is, it's aligned with what you wanted in the beginning. as I've said so many times, and I mentioned it again, we hate to hear as designers, I don't know what I want, but I'll tell you when I see it. And what that means is we have no idea what we're doing. So if you're not ready to tell your design team what you want, then you need to stop and you need to back up and you need to wait and figure it out first, because it's the only way to get to your end result quicker. And it's so much better for you, so much for your product process. And, besides that, then you and your team are happier too, because, as you all know, I know how many times you yell at architects and, about how stupid we are and that we don't know what we're doing. And I promise you, for as many times as you yell at us, we're in the back room going, what are they doing? Do they not understand? So let's get rid of that arguing back and forth by talking up front and working together. It's not it's not brain surgery. It really isn't.
It's all
We
about
make it
communication.
sometimes, but it's not. Yeah.
We do make it hard, don't we, Steve?
Yes, we do.
I can't tell you how many times I've been called in after the fact, and Chuck calls it the go, no go. And usually what happens, it's no go. No go, by the way, is bad. So it's to Stephen's point is everybody has to know what the product needs to be to get there. We talked about working backwards from the price to cost and everything else. So it starts out with the product needs, and then I started talking about the cost per category. Steve just mentioned windows. Some builders, as we're doing the product line, maybe 3 or 4 products, we look at it afterwards. Why does the little house have 25% more than the biggest house? Because we didn't pay attention. So I call that looking at all the cost per category to make sure that we have that. Then with the thing that I do up front is with an architect to give him half a chance so we don't hate him at the end, because I want to go golfing with Steve later on because I heard he's a good golfer. But I wanted to, he's the best actually. But anyway, if I share with Steve everything that I need or that I want, I'll share with him what brand windows, what size windows I want to optimize. And Steve will go back to me and like, dude, you kidding me? I need a little more. And then we go out, then we color outside the lines. I tell him, what size, I go down to what size joist I'm going to use, the spans, what can I optimize? And then they'll come back and tell me, we need to do this, we need to do that. The more I can give to the architectural team and share with the design team and keep them on budget on how many windows, how big the kitchen is, what are my spans, how big are my roofs, every single cost category needs that. And the one thing that Peter mentioned is constructability. A lot of times we go into this and the design team has this thing in mind and the architect is there to basically follow our lead. Then we design this house that's impossible to friggin' build. I was in the Midwest last year. There was 8 parallels over top of the garage in order to get 200 square feet of living space. By the way, do that math. It doesn't work. So there we kind of work backwards. And I think, the buildability is what Peter's talking about, is build it so I can build it quickly, timely. If that product line is a 10-day frame, I just made it a 3-week frame because I designed it stupid.
Peter, you just went through this process this year or this last year, designing some new product. What were some of the things that you were considering, and who did you have on your team to start working on that product?
Yeah, so certainly I mentioned before, the trades are critical to this. In the past, we hadn't involved the trades, and there were just some elements to our designs that weren't efficient at all. So certainly framers are critical to have on board on your external design team. HVAC, all your mechanical trades as well, very critical. Foundations, we've really learned a lot on savings working with our foundation contractors. The one comment I would make on this as well is just that as you go through the design, because I've heard about it in the past about how builders get married to a certain model or a certain product, and then it might be outdated, but they still stick with it. I think they get married to the design process too, because everybody's expelling a lot of effort and energy as you design this. But the one thing that I have found within our business is that there is a whole lot of work once the design is actually done and complete, but to actually put all that front end work into the system so that we can, do the takeoffs, do the purchasing, send the purchase, the purchase orders out to the trades. There's a whole other element that really can bog down the business. So I think once you've got your design, I really think that at the end of it, it's nice to have one last check and balance to make sure that you're checking all the boxes. And one thing that we've talked about, because sometimes the comments that come back in are from the sales, staff out in the field that say, we have these clients and they're looking for this, or we're not meeting their needs here. This is something that we're going to try to do in the near future, is actually canvas those clients, show them the plans, and make sure that is this the design that would have met your needs. Because at the time they came into the sales office, maybe we didn't have something that at the time was that they were looking for. So it's just about making sure that before you put it in the system, that this truly is a winner, and you're not it has to be a winner. It can't be like a mid-range. Make sure it's a winner. And ideally, if there's you're not just building your product library up and up and up. So if you're putting in a new product, chances are that another product should have been analyzed to go out, so that there's always a manageable number of models in your product library for the team to take care of.
Peter, that is probably the smartest thing that any builder could ever say, is manage their product library. We shouldn't be collecting plans. We should have only the best plans out there. What we forget about is, and you mentioned another point, you've got to do the estimates and buy this process. So one of the things that I always look at is what's the timeline, and not jam it up. How many times, Chuck says this all the time, we design it, the plans are still wet. Stephen just sent me the plans over yesterday, and the owner says start it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the other thing that Peter said is very important is, why don't we ask our prospects and our buyers what they want? Why do we always take our opinions and shove it down their wallet, spend their money before we even met them?
Which leads into the next question.
Oops.
Thank you, Ed.
By the
You
way,
guys are amazing.
I didn't even read your email last night. Sorry.
I was prepared. But speaking on that, and to tail off of what Peter said, how important is market analysis during this process? Because a lot of times we've heard builders fall in love with certain ideas and concepts, but maybe they're not what their market wants. So understanding not only the market analysis, but understanding which market you're building for.
Peter touched on something that's really important that we found. You mentioned the subcontractor, the trade partners, but we consider the salespeople as the frontline market researchers in many cases. If you have on-site sales people that run models, and even realtors for that matter, but it's better with your own on-site sales staff. They see and hear everything all the time. And so as a result, as part of the design process, we actively engage with them during the design concept review, so that they are engaged in looking at room relationships and the way spaces work together, and the intent of the way the house lays out, and the way it circulates. Because they know and hear that, they don't want a pantry over here, they want it over here. They don't want a laundry room here, they want it up there. All those little bits and pieces are consumers telling you what they want. And if they listen well, as long as you're not that, and I'll flip that a minute and say, as long as it's not that salesperson that says they really like the master bedroom over here, and it's a personal observation as opposed to what your customers are saying. But every time we look at houses after they're built, we love to tour models after they're done, and invariably I have a conversation with the sales staff. And I guarantee you there's one or two plans that already has terrific ideas for suggestions for improvements based on consumers walking the plan. Now I have to wonder if the salesperson's involved in that, knowing they hear these stories every day, every week, if they're not part of that design process when it's on paper. Just imagine how much more effective they could have been as a product offering for your customers. We want them to fall in love with it. So give them what they want. How can we do that? And give it to them at the price they want.
Steve, 100% agree with you. I mean, they're the frontline people. I like getting all their ideas as much as I can. And just like every other human being, they will tell you a lot of what they heard just recently, which is very important, by the way. But I don't want to hear just the customers last week. I'm going to start collecting that. I like to collect that information, that those observations all the time, so I can actually start building the data. The other person I would add to that list is my selections or design center manager. A lot of times they get the comments after the house is possibly purchased, and they're, well, I wish I could do this. And if you happen to have a selection center, design center that's adjoining your office, walk over, introduce yourself, talk to them, ask questions. I got more information from buyers after they bought and helped evolve the product line. The other thing I would add to that is the product analysis of what people are buying, and do it on a regular basis. Look at it monthly, quarterly, every 6 months. It helps you make product decisions. Why is a house selling? I mean, that data is important because that's showing you what people valued and what they purchased. If what I like going and stopping in the sales center and stopping in my selection center and talking to customers, they'll tell you everything. You just got to ask them and give them a few minutes.
One thing on this subject that has really helped as far as collecting data from the sales team is us collecting the data on how much it actually costs us to drive one customer in to see our sales team. So that's all your marketing dollars. So if someone comes into your sales offices and we, you know, there's something they're looking for that we don't have, well, you can say, well, it's not money lost because it's cost us money to get them into the sales office, but we've collected that feedback from them so that we, you know, can make adjustments for the future. The one thing that is also, I would say, new to us at EQ is having a system where all of this data gets stored. And you know, building on what you just said, Ed, it's like not what just happened 2 days ago. Keeping that data in an ERP system or something that everyone can access, I think is really critical, and I think it takes some discipline. So and you know, I think that's relatively new to many builders, but I do think everyone's starting to learn the importance of it.
Yeah. You know, one of the flip sides of parts of that is be wary of responding immediately or wanting to just respond to client comments every weekend. I mean, we had a particular builder client who would be in the sales office every weekend, and they'd come back and call us on Monday or Tuesday and want to change the designs we were in the process of doing because they heard from a different client that weekend. So it's important to gather the data, but it's also important to filter it through your systems and yourself to make sure you're trying to keep it in the area in which you as a company want to go and not just follow the whims of that particular visitor that weekend who happened to have a compelling story.
Yep.
And
Steve, that's so true.
Yeah, and we had a comment on our earlier discussions talking with Peter about how to know when to commit this giant investment of finishing the process after the designs are done. And the easiest way for a designer to get some of that is to take it to a certain level of finish on a concept side, and then do exactly what we talked about, canvassing your potential buyers or past buyers, and don't take it any further than until you get further validation. So you're reducing your risk by making sure that something's more on target, because we're very, very well aware of the investment on top of the design process and the fees involved there, and getting it into the systems to make it really functional. That's a waste of time. That can be a waste of time if you're not careful. And it's going to touch on another question I'm sure Emma's going to have later, so I'm not going to mention it, but it's one of those conversations. But it's that idea of test as much as you can on paper before you commit, because that just saves you that much more time and money.
Absolutely. Oh, did you have one more thing, Ed?
Well, Steve, it's funny you mentioned that. It's like there's a whole science to getting in front of our prospects. Other industries do market research, and we builders build the largest product that people will ever buy, and we do very little in the product research. It's all our own opinion, which is, I think, how most builders get stuck with. You know, when I talk to them, I said, how many homes do you have? Oh, 128. How many homes a year do you build? 120. Well, that's a bad ratio, by the way. It's a horrible ratio. Peter's laughing because it's killing the back office. So one of the things that I used to do is I call it product evolution versus product revolution. Revolutions were just constantly redesigning product and things. If you really talk to your customers, or what about all those customers that didn't buy? You know, I like to get some of my ideas out to the sales team and design team in their hands. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to sit there and talk to clients. Hey, we're coming out with this. Now, in order to do that, I've got to be within 30 to 45 days of ready to build. So, and Stephen mentioned this, it's got to be to a certain point. But I love getting good opinion, not just last weekend's opinion, like Steve said.
Yep. And one of the things that Peter said in our last call, I wrote this down, was that he likes to listen to his team for ideas, but you don't have to take action on every single one. So I think that kind of sums up what you guys are talking about. Really take in those ideas, listen to them, like process them, and make a decision as to which ones are the right ideas to take action on. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit, because some of product development also includes the materials that you use for building a house. So I'm sure some of our guests are curious about how to evaluate the materials and design to reduce cost and build time. Can you share some of your thoughts you each have regarding reducing build time and improve build process and cost reduction? That's a big meaty one.
Yeah, it's a giant one.
I'd say that the one that comes out all the time is roof designs for us, is efficiency, and the framers are certainly challenged to find subs that do the trusses. If could we build a lot of bungalows at EQ? And there's this ongoing challenge that truss guys don't like the some of our roof designs. So I would say that over the last year, coming out of the executive summit, when we did do some redesigns, that we addressed our truss designs are probably the number one challenge, I would say.
Peter, I see so much money as I walk houses. I was walking with the builder out on the left coast somewhere, and I looked up, and every time I looked up, it was just more and more crap up in the trusses. Everywhere I looked, there was trusses. And everybody's got to remember, every time you see one of them little silver plates, look at one of these things. It's just waving in your face. Just think about it. It's money. So, you know, one thing that we don't do, and I like Peter's idea, is talk to everybody. If anybody ever used piggyback trusses, you're just taking $2,000 and you're burning it. Think of another way how to get out of piggyback trusses. You know what piggyback trusses are? It's when we didn't think about it, and we built trusses that were a foot taller than we can ship, which is the dumbest thing. So the one thing that I like doing is make sure purchasing's involved. Purchasing knows the dollars, okay? You know, I can tell you one thing, I've met a lot of good people with some great ideas, and I got to try and funnel great ideas and what I can afford into the same house. I was the same builder with the outlandish trusses. They had an 8x8 picture window in the house, and I was sitting there with one of the leadership team, and look at this window. I'm like, wow, that window's awesome. He goes, yeah, we have it because whenever we face the mountains, it's this great view. And I said, well, this window is now facing somebody's siding 20 feet away. By the way, nobody asked how much that window was. It was a commercial plate glass. That was a $3,500 window, let alone how many carpenters it take to install it. So have some sort of idea on the cost of products. And, you know, I'm going to pick on Steve a second because he'll pick on me later on. He had a great idea about that giant piece of glass, but when do I use it? So guess what? You use it on the premium lots. We can put that into a lot premium. It's a great design feature, but what's the cost? By the way, the rest of the houses, they put in 3x8 standard pieces, spaced out, look nice, and the premium glass got the $3,500 glass. So I want to use Steve's brain, but I got to bring purchasing in to have some sort of governor on the process. Sorry, Steve.
Dude,
I'll pay for that. I'll pay for that
somebody
later.
else said the view was the most important thing in the house, and I want the biggest piece of glass you got. And that person never went to any meeting after that first meeting, did they? No. And the purchasing guy's going, nobody asked me how much the window cost. Yeah, you know, we'll do anything people ask, but you're absolutely right. And that value judgment is part of it. You know, because there's ways around to give them a view. You know, you can combine glass in a way that's a heck of a lot cheaper and design it so you've got an open deck outside that window, and then you're sitting outdoors looking at the view and on top of the giant window. Because save the money off the window, build a deck instead. You know, it's those kinds of crazy things.
By the way, that person who dictated that and then left and didn't show back up,
Yeah.
sorry to say, was probably an owner.
Yeah, probably. That's what happens. We call that seagull management. You've heard that before, right? That term?
No,
They
not,
come,
not
they
here.
come, they
Not,
come
no.
screeching into the room. They're flying around. They're screaming and yelling. They shit on everybody and then they leave. Pardon my French.
Damn
You know,
French.
the other part of this design piece that you talked a little bit about, Ed, is the catalog. From a management standpoint, Peter's team has to keep track of 80 plans in their catalog. Now they may only build 20 plans most of the time, but the fact is if they've got the other 60 there that somebody can sell, if they sell one of those plans, the design team or their drafting team has to come back and make sure that it's updated for codes or because if they haven't built it in a couple of years or a year or so, they got to make sure they are the costs right, the window supply is right, and everything else. The management, the unseen management cost of those plans is a detriment to your profitability as well. It's one of those scenarios where it would behoove you to look at your collection of what you have selling and know which one of your best sellers are. I'm still your next question. I can see Emma right now. And Chuck and Emma and I have talked about this for years. You have to know what's selling. You have to know which ones aren't selling, which ones do sell and don't make money, which ones do sell and do make money. And you focus on that. And if you don't sell any over a 6-month or a year period, don't use them anymore. The analogy is your closet. How many of you at home have all of the clothes you bought over the last 20 years? No one. Why do we do that as a business? I built that plan 10 years ago, it was a bestseller, so I'm not going to get rid of it. Really? You're going to wear clothes from 10 years ago? Okay. Costume party, maybe. That's the analogy.
So Steve, I always say, why are you marketing ugly dated houses? Why are they on your website?
Touche.
You know what we've made the mistake of doing is building a model home in a model row of the latest and greatest product that didn't end up being a winner, but now it's in your model home row. So it's just continued on in our product library because we don't want people to, it just doesn't, the way we've set it up. So I don't really know how you get around that. I guess you make sure that any model you build is, you've given it's time to prove itself as a winner first.
Yeah.
So Peter, when we talked a few weeks ago as we're getting set up for this, what a lot of builders have done. Now we've all built a model court. It's a cul-de-sac. We put 3 houses in the model court. We're all proud, and 1 out of 3 sells, and we get 2 ugly ducklings sitting there, and we're stuck. You know, now what do? We get rid of the house. You know, admit your mistake and move. But if you build a model court, what a lot of builders are doing now is, and we go to the show in a couple of weeks, I mean, hearing a lot of this 3D modeling. Build one model and then really 3D the rest. I mean, it's much more acceptable these days. The 3D renderings are insane. And to Peter's point, if I build a bad model, move on, get rid of it, build another one. So strategically think about how I'm laying that out. First of all, I want to keep lots on either side of it to make the space look bigger instead of, cramming them all in, But if if you have a bad model, don't keep it, because how many buyers pull up, don't even get out and go, don't mark it ugly.
One other comment I would also make there is just all the feedback loop from your service team as far as putting things into the house that are efficient are things that are costing you money on the back end. So really, I think it's important for all builders to be mindful of the things that they're spending money on for service, and don't just think it's a one-off. Chances are it's going to happen and repeat itself. So just, it takes effort. Yes, you got to go, you got to change the plans. You got to, top mount hangers are the one that come to mind for us for floor squeaks and humps in the floors.
Yep.
But we've tried to get it away from it at EQ for that reason. But, I think it took us longer than it should have. So
that's a very simple product that you're 100% right. They are the worst. I don't know whoever thought of them, but they never looked at a customer service report as people were tripping over the middle of the floor because the hanger's in the middle of the room.
It was a framer. It was a framer that came up with them, I'm sure.
Well,
Surely wasn't us.
You bring up a really good point, including your warranty and your customer service team. I just met with a bunch of warranty managers yesterday, and one of them said that one of the calls he kept getting back from the customer was the way the stairs were laid out. The space was too narrow for anybody to get anything up the stairs. So they went back to the design board to lay out the stairs differently so that customers could utilize the home better. So it's a very good point to make sure that you're listening to what's happening post-close and making adjustments to your existing plans based on those comments.
One of my first jobs working for a builder was in charge of service, because they make everybody go through that because they should, you know.
Yep.
And one of the things we finally changed as a result of that was the design of our bathrooms, because we had so many service calls with a shower seat that was done the wrong way, and we had to tear out and redo. I can't tell you how many times. And it was a simple design flaw, but no one paid attention to it until the service department said, stop. You know, so Peter, you are so right on. It's like, geez, listen to everybody.
So how about all our southern builders who insist on putting pipes, supply lines in cold walls? You know how many calls I got 3 weeks ago when it got cold down south on frozen pipes? You know what their answer is? Let the water run. It won't freeze. Duh, get the pipes out of the outside wall.
We used to use painter lights and clamp them onto the pipe to keep the painter light warm, the pipes warm. It's
Just
terrible.
go south real fast, okay? So we'll get off that one.
I know. So I want to talk real quickly. I know that Peter, when you were originally working on creating your new design, something you talked about when we were talking earlier was that you wanted to make sure that you track and document the criteria for design and create a duplicatable process to maintain consistency beyond your first design process. Can you share a little bit about what that means to you, and what kind of steps you're taking after this last redesign, and what kind of process you've created as a result of that?
Yeah, it's something that we're still working on. It's just really critical that way as you improve on with your own team and you get better, that you're documenting what are the design criteria items that are allowing you to get better and better at that. So it was things like, you know, standardizing your window sizes, for instance, window locations, not too close to outside corners. We've gotten issues with that. Just all of these things that, okay, you checked it once and then you go back 2 years later and you're starting a new product design and you don't want to have to try to go through the memory bank about what it was that allowed you to design a winner 2 years ago. It's really important. I was just saying it's important to keep track of that as you go. Yeah, through your new design phases, I guess. Yeah.
Excellent. Those are good tips too.
Yeah, it's always important to start from somewhere, you know, as opposed to recreating the wheel every time. You know, the design ideas are going to come new, but you know, what worked in the past, give us a general guidance is always really important, you know. And I would add, you know, the other thing I would add too, we've talked about this a little bit. When you're starting with something design-wise, do you start from a fresh piece of paper, or do you look at how do you revise the stuff that you know is doing well? And we recommend strongly that you take your top 5 bestsellers and see about turning those into new and improved. Like you see you know, the toilet paper industry and the paper towel industry, it's a freaking paper towel, but they new and improve it every year. Well, we have houses that are doing really, really well. But I guarantee you there have been innovations occurring in the market and the new things on TV over the last year and all the home improvement shows, and you can make that plan better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's smarter in many cases to work with an existing plan that you know the costs to, and you know how to build it, and you've got all the bugs worked out, like Peter talked about, to start from there as a party to doing the brain damage of starting from zero.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So Steve, I've been an advocate of taste change and elevations change quickly. So why are we throwing out a very good plan because we need an elevation? You know, if I have 3 elevations, say I have 5 elevations, a new style comes out. I can call Steve up and say, listen, I want to introduce this style house to these 5 houses. By the way, I would venture a guess in probably 2 to 4 weeks, depending on timeline and complexity. I've got some good ideas. I passed them around to the team. Probably within 4 weeks, I can bless it and say, this is the style we want. 3 years ago, the whole world just discovered these black windows. Then we couldn't get them. What did that do to our product line? It killed us.
Yep.
But that's a very good looking house. Maybe siding colors, whatever, elevations, we should be tweaking all the time. I've had houses that, have the box, the basic building envelope has been around for a while. Soon as COVID hit, what did everybody need? Everybody needed like 2 offices and a school in their house. That was like overnight. That's probably changed. So if that's flex space, can we get just flex spaces? How do we do that? I'm trying to remember the proper term. Owner suite, I think, is the proper term these days. The owner suite. I was looking at helping a builder with his product design. His owner suite, the bathroom was right out of a catalog from 2008. Hello, those tastes change all the time. So I'm a big fan of looking at product line, and to Steve's point, literally in if the product team and I met with Steve, I can take that house and roll out brand new product in 45, 60 days just by updating it. Now, if Steven had it as a model, do I do a new model, or do I really take the pain and redo the bathroom? Maybe I redo the bathroom, who knows? But product, evolving product is a whole lot easier because that building envelope is solid.
Right.
I can redo a whole lot on plan.
Yep.
To Emma Jane's point, maybe we had some stairs that were awkward. They look really cool in picture, but they didn't work really well.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about in our discussion before that creating a product you can differentiate across different series, markets, and upgradable and adjustable, I think is the terms that we talked about.
Yeah, we were for us, we're some of the designs that we're working on right now, we're trying to design them 2-story designs so that they accommodate, so that the design is laid out so they accommodate a 10-foot ceiling or a 9-foot ceiling as standard, so you don't get into this situation where if somebody asks for that, you're going through a bunch of structural work. You try to think about that in advance, and then you can offer that as an upgrade very easily. You just kind of package it up. So if you buy the 10-foot ceiling, then you get the transom windows and you get the higher doors, that sort of thing. We're not there yet at EQ, but that's definitely what we're working on with our newest designs.
And you make room for the stair landing because you've got an extra, that much more on a riser to make sure you've got a place to land, little things like that, spaces at the doorways.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen, Steve, where if you want the 10-foot ceiling, we got to buy the elevation 4 with the foyer bump out for the stairs to fit. And you open the door and there's 3 inches between the doorknob and the stairs. Really well thought out.
Yep.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to just add, discipline's a really important word from a design standpoint. 9 feet versus 10 feet. And Peter, I would have a conversation and say, do we not have the confidence to pick one and say, look, we're going to stick with this thing as a control factor. And if everybody else is offering 9 feet with an upgradable 10, I would say, figure out a way for us to offer 10. So you've eliminated any of that challenge of trying to manage the conversion between the two and figure out a way to pay for that so that you have a standard feature that everybody else has as an option and price it accordingly. That way you don't have to worry about the brain damage of having to account for that and say, okay, this is the new standard. We're going to make everything 10 foot, and then move from there. From a design standpoint, it's a lot easier to manage. And if you can identify that and reduce your options, it'll protect you in the long run. And if it stands out above your competition, it's that much more of an advantage.
These are good conversations. We have a comment from John Karowski. He agrees with Steve, the builder should be prepared with design criteria, but the architect should be asked what he or she has seen in their pipeline of design that should be considered, which kind of sounds like what you're doing right here with Peter is, what are some things that you've seen that should be considered when you're talking to the builder?
Absolutely. I mean, the benefit of using an outside architect anywhere in the country is they are invariably working with 10, 15, 20, 30 different people. So they're seeing trends all over the place. They're seeing what's playing well. Now, it's important for you as the builder to filter that, but they're being exposed to new and different ideas in a lot of different markets. So they're going to bring that fresh store of knowledge, which is something you should take full advantage of. Absolutely true.
Mhm.
And that's the benefit. The fear or the protection I want to make sure you understand is that architects typically don't have the market research that was supporting those decisions in that marketplace. They just know that feature's really cool. So that, will it work in your market? Good question. That's up for you as the builder and your team around you to filter that and be aware of it. And invariably, the things that we're bringing to the plate, they've seen, because as an industry now, my gosh, we're so covered with information from around the country, design trends online, the various different groups that bring plans from around the country and share them. Used to be the magazine did it once a year. Now it's online. All the stuff that you see on TV, there is no trend that somebody hasn't discovered, 5 times over the last 5 years. But take full advantage of that design exposure. You're absolutely right. But be aware or be extra sensitive, spidey sense kind of thing, to make sure that you can say that worked really well there. Will it work here?
Yep.
Why did it work there? And why will it work in my market or not?
Yep.
But take full advantage of that. Absolutely. That's the whole
And to
point.
take the words from Emma, be disciplined to know your market and to know your buyers.
Yep.
Because they're the ones who are buying your product.
Yep.
So.
And again, you get an advantage. You said, working from home as a result of COVID, I've got a TV on over here just as a noise background because I want to block out my wife's TV shows that she's watching. So invariably it's all the home improvement shows and all these other things that are going on in HTV and everything else. And I'm amazed at the design stuff that they do, they talk about. And I realize that consumers are seeing so much more advanced information at price points that they'll never be able to realize, but they're exposed to it, which means that's what they've got in the back of their mind. So when they come to visit you, they think the house can be built in 45 days and it's $1.5 million and it only costs $500 a month. It's like, how stupid is that? But the design work that they're exposed to is really sophisticated. So maybe I'm preaching to the choir here. I probably am, but I'm amazed.
This choir, you're doing good.
I'm amazed at what they bring to the table right up front. And so it's a tough challenge to figure out a way to deliver it. I think Peter talked about that at one point, how do you make sure we don't disappoint our buyers?
Yeah. I have a totally unrelated question, and I want to make sure we get to this question real quickly. And then I'm going to ask you guys to give your one tip that you want people to take home with them. But I was speaking with a builder yesterday afternoon, and he's trying to adjust direct construction cost. And he's trying to figure out where do you start? Like, how do you decide what percentage of what thing goes towards direct construction costs? And this is something we've done with our builder group. So Ed, this is probably more related to something that you can answer. How would somebody go about starting that budget to manage their direct construction costs?
So fairly quickly at a very high level.
Yes.
I've already got my sale price determined that, by the way, the sale price is not negotiable. It's like, well, we think this, but we'll probably get that. Don't ever say that, because then you're just going to design product that doesn't sell. So always figure out if it's a $500,000 house, let's do the math, real easy for me. $500,000 house, that's the market. No ifs, ands, or buts. My direct construction costs are 50%. That gives me a $250,000 budget. Pretty easy so far. Then what I do is I take an existing similar product, same product, move up buyer, maybe it's first time move up, maybe it's luxury, maybe it's first time buyer. I take another good performing home in that price point, in that category, and I do line by line by line budget. If I'm going from a right now I might be going from a 3,000 square foot house to a 27 to help hit the new market that's being restrained by 20%. So maybe I'm going to go from 3,000 to 27. Each one of those cost codes, I now have a target budget. I'll go back and tell Steve that my 3,000 got 28 windows. Can I do this with 25 windows? And he's going to say, I'll try. We'll see. And we're going to cut the windows out of other areas, not out of the prime areas. But if I take that line by line analysis, it sets targets. Now, where Steve's going to come back to me and say, hey, listen, I really need this, to make the house look good, whatever. Now I'm making decisions based on better product line, not flying blind. Usually what we do is we fly blind. If I have that target budget, that's a starting point. The hardest is when I'm taking a new product that I've never done before and trying to assign some sort of a budget. And the one thing that I like what Peter does is I'm going to bring the trades in as well. For example, if I'm a 3,000 square foot house in my market, I might have a split zone system. HVAC guy says, hey, you come at 26, I can get you in one zone, save you $8,000. How hard was it to find $8,000? That was a phone call or a text. Because for me, in my market, 26 all day long is one zone. 3,000, depending on the size, the width, I'm probably going to do a split zone. That's $8,000 by one phone call. It doesn't get easier to find money like that, but literally have, as Emma says, the discipline to go line by line and assign yourself basically budgets and share that. If I share it with Steve, he's going to come back to me and tell me where I'm wrong, tell me where I'm right. And knowing Steve, he's probably going back to me with some other cost savings ideas that, better efficiency, better product, better elevation, better public spaces, whatever it might be.
Excellent. Thanks for that quick answer, Ed.
It's hard.
All right.
That's a 2-hour class in 2 minutes.
I know you did a great job. I'm very proud of you.
I'm out of words this week.
And if he's listening, I gave him a little bit of a precursor, so hopefully he gets the rest of that. Okay, we are pretty much at the top of the hour. Anybody who has any questions, please feel free to put them in. I'm going to have these guys give us their one tip that somebody can take home with them today and start implementing right away. So I'm going to actually start with Peter since I made him last. I'm going to start with him first and make Ed go last.
I'd say that the previous comment I made about just that feedback loop from the sales team is critical. Keeping that data and making sure that it's impacting your design decisions, and that data is being kept on an ongoing basis.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. Stephen?
So I'm going to expand that team, but make the same thing. As the builder of choice, you've assembled a group of people around you that are really smart, really know what they're doing, and they do it really, really well. Treat them as your partners with a common problem to solve, and consult with them at the time that it's the most efficient and effective to consult with them, as opposed to after everything goes to hell. Do it early on paper, bring everybody in the room and get their input and move forward with that. And you'll end up with a much, much better product in the end.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Ed, what's your one tip? You just get one.
One, just one. My one tip is, after everything we just said, the one thing that I had written down we'd ever covered, develop a timeline. Because otherwise, we'll spend some time with Steve and his team up front. I'm going to spend some time with Peter and his team on constructability. And then the very, very end, I forgot to tell purchasing, and then I give them the house on Friday, so we're building it on Monday. Develop a timeline and have the discipline at each timeline to say, you have to meet this milestone if we want to roll this house out for sale in Q2. If I don't have a timeline, time expands and just nobody pays attention. Next thing you know, we got to build it. Trust me, we've all been there. And Peter had mentioned this earlier. If I'm jamming everybody, I'm not having the chance to negotiate. I'm not chance to fine tune the estimates. I don't have a chance to go back and forth with some possible savings or improvements. So set up a timeline and hold to it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much. This was so much fun to sit here and talk with you guys about this topic. I know there's so much more and there's so many different directions we can go every single time we have a conversation. This conversation is a little bit different than the one we had the other day, but thank you again I hope that you all found value in your time that you spent with us today. And please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. You can visit our website to learn about what opportunities we have available for our builder groups or online programs or our live sessions. So you can see us at builderpartnerships.com and shinnconsulting.com to get more information on any programs that we have available. Thank you again so much. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar Wednesday, which is next week, where we're going to be talking with the leading ladies of home building, Lita Dirks, Emma Shinn, and Carol Smith. So we're
Great.
excited for that one. So see you next week. Thank you,
Thanks.
guys.
Thanks, Emma Jane. Appreciate it.
Thanks
Thanks,
for
everybody.
having me.
Nice seeing you.
Bye.
See you at IBS.
Yes, see you at IBS.